Every winter, something incredible happens in Hawaii. Up to 2/3 of the entire North Pacific humpback whale population shows up in Hawaii. And if you're visiting during whale season, consider yourself lucky because this might end up being the most meaningful thing you experience on your entire trip. Aloha and welcome to Hawaii's Best, the podcast helping you plan an unforgettable trip to Hawaii. Here you'll find practical tips, local voices, and everything you need to plan your trip to Hawaii. I'm Brian and just want to say thank you so much for tuning in today and joining me on this Aloha Friday episode, the last Friday in January already of 2026. So today, we're talking all about whale watching in Hawaii, how to actually do it, when to go, how it actually works. We're going to go over the best spots on some of the islands and do some of the pros and cons of where to go and how you can have the best chance of seeing whales, which could be a really cool thing. So let's go ahead. We're going to start with timing because timing is really everything. Whale season in Hawaii runs from November-ish through April, sometimes May, depends on the season. But for peak activity, January through March is going to be your best bet. That's when you're most likely to see breaches, tail slaps, calves swimming next to their mothers, all that good stuff. You're going to have the best chance to see that kind of in that January through March area. Now, these humpback whales, they're migrating roughly 3,000 miles from Alaska to Hawaii. And in Alaska, they spend their summers feeding. But in Hawaii, they don't eat at all, actually, which actually surprises most people. They're here to mate, to give birth, and nurse their calves in warm, shallow water where there's fewer predators. And who can blame them? Because Hawaii is just so beautiful. I just wonder who that first whale was that discovered and hey, you guys got to come over here. Anyways, I actually just did a consultation yesterday, and I was talking to a couple who is planning a trip in early, mid-April, and telling them that there's definitely a chance you can see some whales, especially on Maui, but always check with the boat tour that you're thinking about going with to see what the season has been like, because each season it can vary. But let's go ahead and we're going to talk a little bit about where to see the whales based on the island. So we're going to start with Maui. Maui is probably your best bet. If you're looking for the highest concentration of humpback whales anywhere in the world, Maui is definitely going to be your spot, and especially the Au'au Channel between Maui, Lanai, and Kaho'olawe. You don't even need to be on a boat to see whales on Maui during peak season. But people, they spot them regularly from Ka'anapali, Kihei, and Wailea, all big resort spots. So just standing on the beach, you have a chance of seeing humpbacks out in the distance. Now, the Big Island, Hawaii Island, the Kohala Coast, that's the main whale watching area on the Big Island. But what makes the Big Island unique is how quickly the ocean drops off. So that deep coastal trench that brings more diversity. So you'll see humpbacks, but tours here on the Big Island sometimes also encounter pilot whales, melon-headed whales, false killer whales, and even sperm whales. So if you're watching from shore, Pu'uko Bay and the Mauna Lani area are local go-to spots. The water drops off quickly there, so whales pass close to shore. Now, on Oahu, you have a chance to spot on the south shore. So places like Makapu'u, Halona Blowhole, and areas near Hanauma Bay can be great for shore-based viewing. The Makapu'u Lighthouse Trail, one of the best elevated viewing spots on Oahu, is a paved 2-mile hike. And during peak season, volunteers from the Hawaiian Islands Humpback Whale National Marine Sanctuary, they'll set up spotting scopes kind of along the lookout. So it's free to use, and they'll help you identify behaviors and if you spot some whales, what you're actually seeing. Now, on the island of Kauai, sightings tend to happen along the Napali coast and the south shore. The island's steep underwater drop-offs also mean that whales often pass closer to shore. Places like Kilauea Point Lighthouse on the North Shore is another elevated viewing spot that's worth checking out For the lighthouse, you'll need to pay a small entrance fee for the wildlife refuge there, but you get a chance to maybe see some whale watching, plus seabirds, monk seals. We did the lighthouse last time we were on Kauai, and it was pretty cool. But it can get pretty windy out there, but still really great views, even if you don't spot any whales. Now, boat tours versus shore watching. And should you do a boat tour? Is it worth it, or should you stay on land and do it for free? Now, shore watching is free. It's low impact and surprisingly rewarding if you're patient, and if you just time it just right. Elevated viewpoints, like we talked about, definitely helps. Binoculars help. And you're looking for spouts first. That's the misty puff of air that gives where the whales are away. But, another trick is to watch for the seabirds. When you see a cluster of birds diving and circling, there's often whale activity below. So watch out for that. Timing really matters. So early morning, right after sunrise, and late afternoon before sunset is when the ocean is typically calmest. Now, midday sun creates glare, and that makes it harder to see spouts and movement. So I would definitely recommend more of a morning or late afternoon if you want to do viewing from the shore. One more thing to consider is that if you are on Maui, McGregor Point Lookout, also called Papawai Point, is a favorite. It's in between Ma'alaya and Lahaina off of Highway 30. It's an elevated view, easy parking, and during peak season, you can see multiple whale pods at once. Boat tours definitely help out because it gives you some education, perspective, and a higher chance of seeing behaviors like breaching. There's really two main boat tour styles. You got catamarans, are larger, more stable, usually have bathrooms and shade, all that good stuff. They're great for families, photographers, anyone who is prone to motion sickness. Definitely would recommend more of a catamaran. And then you have rafts. They're faster, they're closer to the water, they feel more adventurous, but the ride can definitely be more physical. So if you're prone to seasickness, one of the things that would help is, again, book an early morning tour if you can. The ocean is calmer before the afternoon trade winds pick up, and sit in the middle of the boat, not by the bow or stern, less motion there. Depending on the tour during peak season, many operators will rebook you for free if you don't see whales. So that tells you how consistent whale sightings can be during the peak season. A little bit of, fun part here, some of the behavior that you might see when you see a humpback. A humpback can weigh up to 45 tons. And when one breaches and launches part of his body out of the water, it's just huge, enormous, incredible. If you do a boat tour, some tours also use hydrophones, which means you can listen underwater. You can hear the whales communicating, and just really heightens the experience as well. I think it would be good to talk a little bit about culture and legal responsibility, because this part really does matter. In Hawaiian culture, the humpback whale is known as the kohola because they're born in Hawaiian waters. They're considered kama'aina, native born, which is really cool. Many families regard whales as aumakua, or ancestral guardians. And that's why whale watching in Hawaii isn't just sightseeing. It's witnessing a homecoming, really. And legally, there's also the 100-yard rule. So boats must stay at least 100 yards away from whales. Swimming with them or touching them is strictly prohibited. These rules exist to protect nursing calves and conserve, because this population recoveries is one of the biggest conservation success stories in the world. And just 3 more things to know before you book or think about going out and doing some whale watching adventure. First, don't expect constant action. Whales spend most of their time underwater, and you might see a breach, then nothing for like 20 minutes. That's completely normal. Another thing to be aware of is that if you are booking a tour, ask about group size. Smaller boats mean better viewing angles and less crowding at the rail, but they also mean a rougher ride if the ocean is choppy, a smaller boat. And the third thing is, don't chase the whales. If you're on a boat and the captain moves away from a whale, it's because of the 100-yard rule. The whales will surface where they want to surface. You've seen some of those videos where it seems like the whales come up right up on the boat. Hopefully the boat captain wasn't doing that on purpose, and that was the whale's choice that just kind of came out of nowhere. But that isn't the norm. So whale season in Hawaii, it isn't a show. It's a reminder of what happens when conservation actually works. So from almost on the brink of extinction to tens of thousands of whales returning to Hawaii every winter, it's one of those rare moments where you get to witness this cool nature success story. So thanks again for joining me on this Aloha Friday. And until next Tuesday, as always, live with aloha.
Mahalo for listening to this episode of Hawaii's Best. To stay up to date on future episodes, hit follow on your podcast app. Hawaii's Best is a production of Shorebreak Media Group with editing by Easy Podcast Solutions and music courtesy of our friends Stick Figure.